Just reported that Joel Embiid is set to undergo another knee surgery next week. Is it possible this is the magic one that fixes everything and gets his health back on track, or is this just going to be more of the same thing? Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal in this channel is to teach more about the medical side of the sports world. Now, we've made a lot of videos about what's been going on with Joel Embiid throughout this past season, and I've been pretty blunt about my concerns with just the repetitive amount of swelling he's had in his knee, the repetitive symptoms, this very low threshold before his swelling and pain returns to where he has to sit out. Go search the channel, review some of those. We'll hit the high points in this video, but we finally got an update today that he is set to undergo arthroscopic surgery on his left knee next week. Now, we're going to read this report and then talk about what they're likely going to do, and then I'll give you my opinion on if I think this is going to fix anything. Spoiler alert, you probably already know my answer. So he's undergoing to go arthroscopic surgery. The procedure is being done with the goal of reducing the symptoms Embiid has been experiencing and will allow him to perform at a higher level, sources said. After being ruled medically unable to play, etc., his second surgery on the knee in just over a year, he'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks and is expected to make a full recovery. Now, how many times have we heard this exact situation, this exact reporting play out? Not just with Embiid, but with any professional athlete. Every time we see a report like this, the expectation is always he is expected to make a full recovery. Which, of course, when we do a procedure, we expect the patient, we expect the athlete to make a full recovery. But we know that if you do enough of these procedures on a population level, on the whole, not everybody is going to make a full recovery. But it gets presented to fans, it gets presented to people in the media that, yes, everybody is like guaranteed to make a full recovery. And we've been through this multiple times now with Embiid. And so, no, I am not optimistic based on this reporting that this is going to be the definitive cure that's suddenly going to put his career back on the trajectory it was 5 years ago. And that's what they're trying to make you think based on this reporting. Now, we'll dive into what I think the surgery is going to be and why I feel so just pessimistic about this. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Today's video is sponsored by 4Wellness and the Good Stuff Focus Coffee Boosting Formula that's the perfect addition to your daily brew. My day starts with coffee, and before I found 4Wellness, I was adding things like creamer, sugar, stuff full of a bunch of artificial ingredients that weren't really good for me. But then I found 4Wellness and the Good Stuff Focus Coffee Boosting Formula. It's a brain-boosting coffee supplement that's designed to be mixed into your coffee to support things like focus, energy, and longevity, all in one simple and convenient scoop. They even offer these nice little single-serving packets that are perfect for when you're on the go. It contains great ingredients like L-theanine to help reduce anxiety and jitters, collagen to help support your joint health, and many others. It's got a really nice cinnamon taste, which is perfect because it helps boost the flavor, but also helps to fight inflammation. Right now, you can receive 25% off your subscription and free shipping by using code BRIANMD. At checkout, click the link down below or scan the QR code on the screen. Subscribers also get 25% off the single purchase price for life with the option to save up to 30% on double subscriptions. New subscribers to the Good Stuff Focus also receive a free welcome gift. Choose from a nice ceramic canister and metal scoop that looks great on your counter, or a really convenient and handy travel tumbler. There's a reason this stuff has over 10,000 5-star reviews. You're going to love it, and it's been a fantastic addition to my morning coffee routine. So thank you again to 4Wellness for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to our learning. First of all, an arthroscopic surgery is a surgery where small little incisions are made on the skin and cameras are inserted and everything is done arthroscopically, meaning through these small little portals, these small little incisions. This is very much the standard, even when something like a meniscus repair is done or more serious types of orthopedic surgeries and joints. This is kind of the standard. So this is just a scope, but it doesn't tell you exactly what is going to be done. To think about what might be done, you have to think about the subsequent evaluation, kind of reevaluation treatment period. If they are doing something like a cartilage transplant, which we've alluded to in previous videos, or a meniscus transplant, that is not something you would reevaluate in just 6 weeks. That's something they would have decided on already. We would have heard about that being done. So this is not at all anything like a cartilage transplant, meniscus transplant, etc. Also, if you were going to do something like a meniscus repair where you try to sew back the torn piece of the meniscus, try to repair things, that is going to often be like a multi-month, kind of 3 to 6 month recovery timeline. And so this reevaluation in 6 weeks to me is more on the shorter frame of something just like a debridement, like where they're going to go in and basically clean out any scar tissue in there, maybe smooth down the cartilage, maybe trim away more of the torn meniscus. So really it sounds exactly like what has already been done. And we've seen a lot of athletes undergo these knee arthroscopy clean out procedures. And generally, yeah, things do pretty well short term. I would fully expect that Embiid's knee will feel great in the short term, maybe a few months, hopefully longer. But what happens is the more of that tissue you go in and take out, the more of that cartilage you remove, the more of that meniscus you remove, the less that's there to do its job in stabilizing and protecting the knee. So it unfortunately is oftentimes a short-term solution for a bigger problem. If we think back to our biodigital anatomy tool, remember that Embiid has had multiple meniscus tears and he's undergone surgery to trim out that torn meniscus tissue. The other thing that is often done when they go in there for surgery is you can get damage, you can get little potholes, tears in that cartilage, things like early arthritis. If that is extensive, if it's widespread throughout the joint, then things like cartilage transplant procedures, meniscus transplant procedures are not going to work. If you have focal singular spots where there's holes in the cartilage, then yes, those cartilage transplant procedures might be more optimistic and more doable. But the fact that they're going in and presumably just doing some sort of a scope cleanout procedure because he's going to be reevaluated in just 6 weeks implies that they're not doing any of that repair. Now, the challenge here is that that doesn't mean that that's a bad treatment. I want to make sure I make that clear. That doesn't mean it's like a bad medically negligent treatment. Sometimes that is flat out all that you can do. Sometimes the tearing of the meniscus tissue, the damage to the cartilage is beyond the point of quote repair that you can fix. And truly all you can do surgically is go in and try to clean out the torn flaps of cartilage, the torn pieces of meniscus that are irritating the joint and causing that swelling and pain. So just because they're doing this and I'm pessimistic about it being a fix for him doesn't mean that it's bad medicine. I want to make that very clear. This doesn't mean that the Sixers are doing bad medicine, because that frankly might be all that they can do based on what's going on in his knee. The part of this that bothers me so much is how all of this gets presented. I think fans are smart enough to know that just, oh, suddenly now this is going to be the magic surgery and he's going to make a full recovery and play at the same high level he was before. That would be very uncommon. Now, short term, yeah, short term, I think he'll probably feel pretty good in the summer. We'll probably hear his knees doing well. He'll probably ramp up just fine. But I would not be surprised at all if, unfortunately, we get into the season, the preseason, October, November, and the knee starts swelling, the knee starts aching again. That would be my expectation just based on what we've seen with everything that's been done before and how these things turn to play out. Nothing makes that meniscus grow back. Nothing makes that cartilage grow back. And so unless we hear about some very unusual like tumor or, process that's growing something in his knee that needs to be addressed, we have to assume that this is just that cartilage, that meniscus that has been ongoing this whole time. I truly just want to communicate the biggest point of this is understand when these teams report expected to make a full recovery. I don't think they're doing it like with bad intentions, but we have to understand that that is not always how things are going to play out. If you look across the population of elite athletes with things like ACL reconstructions, not everybody makes a full return to sport. It's not as high as you might think, but on an individual basis, we hope and assume that everybody individually will make a full recovery. But at this point, to be presenting it like this with Embiid it does feel a little bit disingenuous. It feels a little bit deceptive because we've seen it all. We've heard this story multiple times, and this puts a lot of pressure on Embiid. This puts pressure on him that he is expected to make a full recovery from the medical staff. So if he doesn't, it might somehow be his fault. Nothing about this to me seems like it's anything Embiid's at fault for, but putting this expectation to the fan base, to the player of, we expect you're going to recover. Well, why aren't you recovering? You must have done something wrong. It's how you frame these situations. I truly wish they would just acknowledge that his knee has been difficult to manage. His knee will need further management going forward, and allow everybody to just kind of reset with how they foresee the future and what they expect with his play. Because this continual, we're going to scope it, he's going to be great, no big deal long term. Sorry, a year later, we got to scope it again, he'll be great, no big deal long term. Eventually, we realize that that's not the way that things reliably play out. I have no ill will against Embiid. I have no ill will against the 76ers. I hope for his sake this fixes everything and he does amazing. But we have to at some point be a little bit smarter about what we're seeing play out repeatedly and realize that it's not always going to be a guaranteed fix. And hearing that they're only doing something that's going to have a quick reevaluation in 6 weeks tells me that there's nothing that can truly be like repaired, reversed, etc. And this will most likely, in my opinion, turn out to be a short-term solution. And I would not be surprised at all if we continue to have these knee problems next year after he's had some short-term benefit. That's it for the video, everybody. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later.